Everyone likes a great deal, like savings, markdowns, and lunch specials. But when it comes to car insurance, we know the right place. State Farm offers surprisingly great rates for your ride. Your friends don't have to have a connection or call in a favor. State Farm offers options like insuring your ride and your home, getting you great rates on both. Now that's a deal. Like a good neighbor, State Farm is there. Call or go to statefarm.com for a quote today.
Hello and welcome to Useful Idiots. I just decided to sign it out.
I wasn't. Oh, I see. Useful idiots.
I did the U and the I, yeah.
Okay.
For those of us just listening, I traced a U and then I traced a vertical line.
It wouldn't be a very good-looking symbol, I don't think.
Oh, like a U, like this. Yeah, it would look like a pitchfork or a tuner.
It could look like a lot of things. None of them positive.
Right. You want to hear very quick? Well, and this is Matt Taibbi.
I'm Matt Taibbi, by the way.
Yeah. Want to hear a very quick story about a tuner? So my uncle, my mom and I were visiting my uncle. He was in he had surgery, so he was in a rehab center, and we were visiting him, and he wanted a guitar tuner because he had a guitar and he played the guitar, and he also wanted to get stuff from the deli, and he wanted pastrami. So we came with the tuner and then the pastrami sandwich. My mom got a tuna melt. I don't remember what I got. I think maybe I got a tuna melt too. So we're sitting there with my uncle and he goes, "Can I have the tuna?" And my mom was like, "You want a pastrami?" I was like, "No, he's talking about the tuner." But he had a thick New York accent, so.
Right. I get it. That's good.
Yeah.
What do you think the percentage chances that Alexa will tell us a good joke if I ask her right now?
I don't want to get anyone's hopes up, so I'm going to say 50.
Alexa, tell us a joke.
Why couldn't a basketball stay in a relationship?
Because it was always bouncing around.
Rebound.
Oh,
What did
that's
it say?
good. Because it was always on the rebound.
No, I'm gonna vote no on that one.
Do we give her one more chance?
Alexa, tell us a joke.
Why did the plane land on the football field? To score a touchdown.
Ugh.
Why did the plane land on a football field to score a touchdown? All right, one more chance. We got to maybe.
Alexa, tell us a joke.
What do you call a boomerang that doesn't come back? A boomerang.
A what?
Bummer something?
A bummerang? Like what?
Bummerang?
A bummer? Oh my God, Alexa, you're fired.
So lots of stuff to go over this week.
None of it
Is there?
good, as you said. And we have
I guess
a great
there is.
guest too. Oh, we
Yes.
don't announce the guest at the beginning, right?
No.
Okay.
No, we've gotten out of that habit. So let's just get into it. Four food groups. You're up, right? Democrats?
Yeah,
suck?
I'm up. Yeah. So yes, Democrats suck. For Democrats suck, let's just go to the videotape and check out a statement, a lovely moment with Jen Psaki.
The Biden administration considering extending that student loan payment pause? I know there's, if not, besides legislation that probably won't pass, what are some of the options that can help these people?
You're talking about the student loan payment pass that expires in February, just for clarity. So
No, the other one.
In the coming weeks, we will release more details about our plans and will engage directly with federal student loan borrowers to ensure they have the resources they need and are in the appropriate repayment plan. We're still assessing the impact of the Omicron variant, but a smooth transition back into repayment is a high priority for the administration. The Department of Education is already communicating with borrowers to help them to prepare for return to repayment on February 1st and has secured contract extensions with loan servicers. So we are preparing for a range of steps here. These steps have provided, I would just note, more than $12.5 billion in discharges to nearly 640,000 borrowers, plus tens of billions more saved by the 41 million borrowers who have benefited from the extended student loan payment pause. But it expires February 1st, so right now we're just making a range of preparations.
And then on the Olympics,
So, okay, the answer to that question, Matt Wilson, can you play just the very opening of that clip?
the Biden administration considering extending that student loan payment pause? I know there's, if not, besides legislation that probably won't pass, what are some of the options that can help these people?
They're asking, is Biden considering extending the student loan forgiveness, right?
Yeah, the payment pause.
Is he considering extending the payment pause, right? And the answer, you can't really tell. You wouldn't be able to tell from the minutes.
I fell asleep in the middle of the answer.
Right? So,
yeah.
well, let me tell you what the answer is. It's a big fat no.
Right.
But
Yes.
I don't think she actually ever says that. She says they're resuming. What, I can't remember the word she says. Does anyone remember? Well, you were asleep. Wilson, do you remember the word she says at the very end?
Nope.
Can we play the very end of it? It's just like literally the last 10 seconds.
Like our Carlton the
15
Doorman.
Who is it?
Carlton the Doorman.
Don't know that. Who's that?
He is a sitcom character who is heard but not seen, and has
what sitcom?
I think it's The Facts of Life. I'm not. No, not The Facts of Life. The Valerie Bertinelli one. Oh no, wait. Carlton the Doorman's from Rhoda, isn't it?
Yeah, Rhoda. That's isn't that? Wait, is that her? Is it Valerie Bertinelli? No, it's what's her name?
No. That's not Valerie Bertinelli.
I know. What's her name?
I don't remember what her name is.
This is like the Senior Olympics.
Yeah, it is.
Name that whatchamacallit.
In any case, the important the point was that Wilson is our sitcom character, who is he's the amusing comic relief who appears sporadically, for an easy laugh.
Right.
Does that make sense? Wilson, you're not offended by that, are you?
No, it's the
Valerie
best
Harper,
praise I could have gotten
Harper.
from a boss.
Excellent. Valerie Harper, not Valerie Bertinelli. It was a Valerie, however.
It was a Valerie.
All right.
So just play the last 15 seconds of this.
More than $12.5 billion in discharges to nearly
bragging about how helpful
640,000 borrowers, plus
not
tens
the
of billions
question.
more
The
saved
question
by
was
the
not, can you
41 million
assess
borrowers who
the
have
success of
benefited
the pause?
from the extended student loan payment pause. But it expires February 1st, so right now we're just making a range of...
There. It expires February 1st, so that's the answer. Is he considering pausing it? No. Big fat no. But she never says no.
No, fuck you, but...
Yes, no, go fuck yourself.
Yeah, no, go fuck yourself. But on the way, here are some things to consider.
That we're preparing for the pause.
Right.
We're preparing for the pause. What the fuck does that mean, by the way?
I don't know. And we're still assessing the impact of the Omicron variant.
Yeah. Well, what the hell could that impact be, except for maybe more of a pause?
I think what they're trying to say is we've already come to a conclusion that the Omicron variant isn't enough of a big deal to make us consider extending this pause.
Right.
So that's actually a reason why, another reason why you should go fuck yourself. But we want to make it sound like it's a reason we're still considering.
Right. So
fingers
crossed, students. Maybe the Omicron strain will
it will turn very deadly,
and then you'll be in good luck. Then you'll be lucky. You'll have lucked out. Yeah. Also, okay, I know we're not supposed to, but I'm a woman. It's better, so you can just nod, Matt, or shake your head or condemn what I'm saying as problematic. But what's with the a lot of women do this, my friends included, and I'm not opposed to it, but I think it's a little weird for a White House spokeswoman, the press secretary, to wear something with holes in it. Especially because can we look at her image again, Wilson? You see the holes that she has? I mean, they're not holes it's not like it's worn out. They're intentionally designed. They're cut in. But it looks like, if you squint, and it's a navy shirt. Matt's trying not to laugh. It's a navy shirt, and it looks like a cat or something with eyes. It looks like some creature. Do you know what I mean?
No, I have a totally different read on that.
Oh, what is it?
Those are gills. She's an alien, and she needs to aerate.
Right, you're right.
Right.
You're right.
So
she's coming out as she's no longer hiding the gills. She's no longer alienation. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, so you know what? Now I really put my foot in my mouth because I just.
They're very odd, though.
I'm very ableist right now. I didn't know those were gills. Thank you for raising my awareness here, Matt.
They could be a variety of things.
They could be raindrops.
Windshield wipers.
Windshield wipers.
The eyes thing is pretty powerful once you look at it that way.
Once you see it that way?
Yeah.
In which case, what would it be? I feel like Wilson and Taibbi, you know better than I would do what creature that would be. Some kind of thing in a movie that I haven't seen, probably.
Yeah, I know who you're thinking of, though.
Right, with the eyes.
It's there was also a video game called Rolling Thunder that featured characters who wore sort of hooded costumes that had eyes like that, I think.
Yeah. I knew one of you would know. And for people just watching, it's like 2 raindrops.
It's not sexy.
No,
it looks more utilitarian.
Yeah, it says it says unsexy as you can get with holes cut out of something.
Right. Yeah, it makes that's why I was thinking gills right away.
Right. You're right, because it's not really a good fashion statement.
Right. It's like I needed to cut these in order to breathe.
Do you think she did it right before getting on stage? Like she was just she didn't have time to take a breather?
Maybe it could be. We go back and look and see if she makes room, in some of the other.
In other appearances, she does the shake thing, the grab and shake. I don't know how to describe it. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, look, shifting to the more serious thing, like the student loan pause. This was going to be a bad look for the Democrats, almost no matter what they decided, because this started under Trump, right? So having not done a debt forgiveness program, they are now going to end a Republican-instituted student debt, essentially quasi forgiveness program.
Trump must be laughing his ass off.
I don't understand why they don't come up with some kind of solution to this problem. I mean, having written about this subject so many times, it's such a massive thing in the lives of so many people. Like, apart from Medicare for all, this is the easiest major fix they could do to change. Well, actually, that's not true, because this really primarily impacts the lives of people who are college graduates. So you're not going to get votes, who already overwhelmingly vote Democratic anyway.
Right.
But they should do something about it. It's just amazing that they keep punting away opportunities to do something about an obviously bad system.
Yeah, and I bet there are people who are independents, who are parents of kids with debt, who would like the idea that their kid doesn't have to struggle to make ends meet, be punished for trying to get educated.
I mean, they should also just do something about the whole system. And we've done a couple of shows about this, but the whole system that kind of enables these companies to engage in types of predatory lending that the system was never designed to allow. Right. So you can't give a credit card to an 18-year-old who has no credit history, expect really to get away with that. But you can give massive amounts of sort of extra student lending to that same 18-year-old under the guise of a student loan, for expenses.
Right.
And get away with it. But
yeah, great look, guys. Great look, Dems.
Anyway, but yeah, you're right. Yeah, this is just yet another one of those things that's going to back up on, or it won't. Who knows? I don't know. I feel like my predictive powers are waning, like my memory these days. So.
Well, that's good. You won't remember how embarrassingly off your predictions were.
That's a good point. All right, yeah, for Republican Suck this week, there was a lot of stuff to choose from, and look, the Mark Meadows thing was certainly food for thought. I want to wait for the whole January 6th investigation to blow over before I kind of weigh in on that, because, well, for a variety of reasons. But there was another thing that happened this week that just always drives me nuts about Republicans, because they do this every single time, and I just don't I understand why they do it, but it's just like, it's almost like the perfect definition of performative nothingness, which is maybe it's like semi-annual demonstration against raising the debt ceiling. They did raise the debt ceiling. Wilson, if you can bring up the Hill story about this, you can see that they actually did do this. Senate Democrats raised debt ceiling after filibuster deal, right? So this is sort of expected, and here's how it reads. Senate Democrats on Tuesday voted to raise the debt ceiling, bypassing a GOP filibuster as part of a deal struck by congressional leaders. Senators voted 50 to 49 along party lines to raise the debt ceiling by $2.5 trillion. Though GOP senators supported legislation last week setting up the simple majority vote, none voted for the bill to increase the debt ceiling. So in other words, this is actually not a small detail. This is annoying, even though this was something that everybody agreed to, essentially, right? Like they agreed to not put up a fight about this, but they voted against it anyway, just to have the appearance of more conflict. Right. When this would have been an easy example of, yes, we can actually work together, but right. But we don't. Right. We hear Mitch McConnell in the story, if you go down, saying every Senate Democrat is going to vote on party lines to raise our nation's debt limit by trillions of dollars. If they jam through another reckless taxing and spending spree, this massive debt increase will be just the beginning, he said. More printing and borrowing to set up more reckless spending to cause more inflation to hurt working families even more, McConnell added. Now, if you go back and look, you will find Mitch McConnell basically taking all sides of this position. Wilson, can we see the Mitch McConnell on why you have to vote yes on raising the debt limit?
As you know, we're moving toward the conclusion of this period in session. We have left to do the FDA user fee bill, the veterans bill from the House.
Can you pause it 1 second? Sorry, this is unrelated, but they look like a gaggle of monsters. Don't they?
McConnell to me always looks like a nun.
Yeah, it's true.
Can you imagine him with a habit on?
I mean, he would not, look, but now I have, and
he would look better than the Larry David version of Sister Mary Mengele in the Three Stooges movie.
Sister Mary, I don't know what that is.
You have to watch the Three Stooges movie.
Unrelated to Dr. Mengele?
No, it is related to it. You have to.
The Three Stooges did that? That's kind of.
It's the Farrelly Brothers movie. You just trust me. It's really, really funny. You should watch it.
And Larry David is related to it, or no?
He's in it. He plays the sort of evil nun in the movie.
It's called Mr. Mary Mengele. Mrs. Mary Mengele.
Sister Mary
Mengele. Okay, we got to watch that.
That's not the name of the movie. The name of the movie is The Three Stooges. But
got it.
Yeah.
The Farrelly Brothers did a movie called The Three Stooges, which features Sister Mary Mengele, played by Larry David. Who's fantastic. Yeah, but he would have been a more convincing Sister Mary Mengele. Anyway, let's keep listening.
Democratic leader and I have been talking about what I believe will end up being a pretty robust package of nominations that'll clear, that will help the administration get up and get running, which has been, as you know, quite a challenge for them. So that really kind of sums up what we'll be doing here before we break. And I would mention one other thing. The Secretary of the Treasury, Senator Schumer, and I had a good meeting this morning in my office to discuss the raising of the debt ceiling, which we all know will need to be done.
Okay, so that was before he took sort of mountains of shit for saying that. And then Wilson, if we could see the other version of his take on this.
Republicans are shining a spotlight on the reckless taxing and spending spree that Washington Democrats are riding behind closed doors.
Doesn't he sound like a hostage?
Pushing in all their chips.
It sounds like he can't fully open his mouth.
Temporary pandemic as a Trojan horse for permanent.
He's got a tarantula covered in peanut butter in his mouth.
Who ran as a unifying moderate is either powerless to stop them,
like John McCain's arms, but mouse form.
An avalanche of crushing tax hikes that would hurt families and help China.
How does he not open his mouth so much?
America's healthcare decisions, childcare choices,
but move it so much.
Family finance.
I don't know. When we get that old, we'll find out.
Trillions upon trillions more in government spending when families are already facing inflation. None of this, of course.
Is he going to use the word penury, do you think? I bet not.
What word?
Democrats have
penury.
I thought you said pangolin.
No, not pangolin. Penury. Pangolin also.
To use a party line fast track process to ram through the Senate this version of their vision of America.
Okay, dude, you can't read your own sentence.
That's why Republicans will not help this unified democratic government with its basic duty to raise the debt ceiling. This could not be simpler. If they want to tax, borrow, and spend historic sums of money without our input, they'll have to raise the debt limit without our help. This is the reality. I've been saying this very clearly since July. And I think our Democratic colleagues are finally getting it because now they're fumbling for bogus excuses. They remain confident they can spend trillions of dollars to remake the entire economy in a couple of weeks, but supposedly they just cannot clear this much smaller procedural hurdle without Republican help. Really? Give me a break.
Once you spend the money, it's done. Like,
right.
You got to raise the debt ceiling. There's no choice. Not raising the debt ceiling is
right.
suicide. Okay, like if you default on all that debt, you've already spent the money. If you don't borrow to fulfill the obligations, the next time you're going to have to borrow, which is going to be immediately. It's going to cost you a fortune more. So, not raising the debt ceiling is not an option. It's not a political option. It's not an economic option. It's just not something that can be done. If you want to fight about spending, you have to do it when you're deciding what to spend. This is like somebody saying, "Oh, I'm going to control spending," and again, we've talked about this before. It's not analogous to household spending, but
right.
But the thought is similar. Like, oh, I'm going to control spending by not paying my credit card bill. Like, no, you control spending by not spending, and so they go through this dog and pony show every single time. Like, we're not gonna raise the debt ceiling.
How could Dems nail them on this?
They can't, because everybody does it. That's the whole point, is that both parties inevitably spend tons.
Right.
So that both parties rely on each other to always raise the debt ceiling.
Right.
So in that sense, he does slightly have a point that it's kind of a conspiracy that between the parties to always do this, but they never follow through on defaulting, because that's asinine.
Yeah.
More importantly, they never follow through on cutting spending
right.
together.
Cut the Pentagon, guys. That's a big money hole, big money pit. It's like a boat.
It's just that this whole thing is just such a dog and pony show, and they're particularly bad about it, because if you listen to that first video of Mitch McConnell, like, he just accidentally blurts out the truth because I guess he's forgetting to lie briefly, like, oh yeah, which one, the debt ceiling, which we have to raise, because I guess maybe he's getting tired. He forgot he had to
lie.
Yeah,
he forgot his talking points.
Yeah. So, and then later on, someone's like, "Dude, you got to pretend that we are not going to do this."
Right.
And so he goes onto the Senate floor and is like, "All right, well, they're going to have to do this without our help." And then, of course, they do it with their help. That's the other thing, is they actually did work out a deal to end. It's just so frustrating. And the people who actually pay attention to this stuff, either they're going to be upset that one or the other party is spending too much or is not serious about cutting spending, or they're going to be upset that they're pretending to care about spending. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It's like just the lying about it doesn't really help anybody politically.
Right.
So anyway, that's my Republican suck.
Yeah, and how they do indeed suck.
And this goes back to their whole. It'd be one thing if this was just if this were right after. Well, even that didn't count. Like, the historic budget slashing that went on under Ronald Reagan, which of course, when you go back and look, turned out to be offset by a massive payroll tax hike that that ended up having, consequences on generations of people. And was later presented as, oh my God, Social Security's broke. Wonder why that happened. It's right. The whole thing is just infuriating, but this is just regular installment of let's pretend that we really are going to do something about spending by voting to do a suicidal, abrogation of our financial responsibilities. Like, ugh. Anyway, so what do we have? What do we have for?
Wait, isn't that weird? Yeah. So this, I thought. Let me just be honest. Can we show or maybe we can surprise Matt actually. So at first I thought that this story, I read the headline and it says, I saw Delta flight, right? And I saw woman caught breastfeeding. Woman caught breastfeeding on a Delta flight is what I saw at first. And I was really angry about it. But then I noticed that the words between breastfeeding and on a Delta flight were her hairless cat. So woman caught, and this is a great story, and shout out to the New York Post for providing it. Woman caught breastfeeding her hairless cat Delta flight. A Delta passenger was recently caught breastfeeding her hairless cat on a Delta flight from Syracuse, New York to Atlanta, Georgia, and ignored the repeated pleas of a flight attendant to put it back in its bag. A message which was then sent to alert the Delta crew in Atlanta of the situation has been shared on social media. And it says
passenger in 13A is breastfeeding a cat and will not put cat back in its carrier when flight attendant requested.
Newsweek reports that flight attendant Ainsley Elizabeth, who was on board during the incident, took to TikTok on November 13 to explain more of what went down. This woman had one of those like hairless cats swaddled up in a blanket so it looked like a baby. Her shirt was up and she was trying to get the cat to latch, and she wouldn't put the cat back in the carrier, and the cat was screaming for its life. Yeah, this is where it gets into, isn't that terrible too? Yeah. But
what? That's not already terrible? Okay, good.
Well, it was weird and then it was terrible. If the cat was into it, it would be just weird. The incident left the internet horrified. Such an ugly cat too. People removing their shoes during a flight is off-putting enough, but breastfeeding a cat, the seals of the apocalypse continue to loosen. Yeah. Has anyone tried unplugging humanity and plugging it back in? Can you imagine being on that flight? I mean, I feel the woman needs help.
I think there should be an airlock where certain passengers should just be released into the sky.
Yeah, maybe. The cat would probably appreciate it. I mean, that cat needs to be rescued also. Right?
Yeah, and what's the pathology of a person who not only has that weird paraphilia about breastfeeding a cat, but has to do it in public?
Yeah, it's terrible. I mean,
like what goes on in private?
I don't even want to know. I hope that cat was freed though.
I just thought of like eight things that were really terrible.
Share. Can't even.
No, I won't. I mean, I won't. But I'm sure everyone's thinking similar things. You know?
Yeah, that's what she does in public. Yeah.
I mean, why are there not more severe consequences for that?
Yeah, she should. Yeah. Well, I'm not. I have problems with the carceral state, but I do think she definitely needs to be trained. There needs to be an intervention, no doubt.
I'm just trying to imagine a flight attendant walking down the aisle and looking over and seeing like a guy putting like strawberry jam on his dick and having a dog licking it or something like that. Like, oh my
God. Yeah.
What would you do in a situation like that? Why that would certainly be arrest, right?
Yeah, that would warrant arrest. Yeah. She's really pervert. She's what she's doing. She's hiding behind. She's hijacking breastfeeding rights. Right.
Right.
Like because there are unfair restrictions on breastfeeding. So she's trying to dilute.
Right. Yeah. It's a trick.
Yeah. I mean, she's also probably fucking nuts.
Well, that's
maybe
true.
It's not a trick. But how dare she unintentionally weaponize breastfeeding rights to apply them to a hairless cat who doesn't want to breastfeed? Also,
why is the cat hairless? What?
That's just the thing. It was born that way. Although, you know what? It does open the door. It's such a weird thing. It kind of opens the door for weird. Now, I'm victim blaming now. I was going to say for weird behavior, but that's not fair. You can't do that. Would she
Part
do
of her
that to
thinks
a
it's a
hairy
baby.
Cat?
Yeah,
right,
probably
would she do
not,
it to
right?
A furry cat? Maybe not. I mean, that is if that's a baby, that's like the ugliest baby. Well, I'm sure.
Yeah, baby with claws.
Baby with claws and skinny. She clearly can't handle a hairless cat. Don't know if she could handle a haired cat. I think she shouldn't have rights to have any animals. This is the consent is clear. The cat is screaming. I don't know if cats can scream, What can they do? They can meow angrily.
Yeah, I think humanity needs to reintroduce some of those ancient, like, exile traditions. Like,
yeah,
I'm sorry, we just can't have you in the community anymore.
and
we're
shoot
gonna
her
put
out of the plane.
Yeah, or just put her in a barge, and
Yeah,
wherever you end up, as long as it's not
Right.
here, it's fine.
yeah. Or with
I mean,
cats, as long as it doesn't involve an encounter with cats or any animals.
well, just not as long,
Creatures.
whatever it is, as long as it's not on our territory. Like,
Oh, I see. No, I
see what I'm
don't.
saying?
That's out of sight, out of mind. I won't permit that.
I see.
You can't be allowed to inflict suffering.
You're
She
more
could just
worried
be
about the cat. I'm more worried
re-educated.
I'm more worried about myself in the
The
situation.
tribe. Yeah.
Yeah.
The human tribe.
Yeah, exactly.
All
yeah,
right,
that's
if
pretty
someone
bad.
did that to Bodhi, I would kill them.
I don't think Bodhi would latch.
No, I mean the cat didn't latch either. Bodhi would probably bite, actually. So she'd defend. She'd have no. I think the woman would have no. She'd already have be disincentivized. Bodhi
Right.
doesn't take shit from people.
Good for Bodhi.
Yeah. Good for Bodhi.
Well, that was definitely
weird.
That was definitely weird. As usual, it's pretty hard to tell between the difference between weird and terrible.
Yeah. Let's go for your terrible.
Wilson, how are we categorizing this? Is this a public service message? Is it a joke? Is it what is it exactly?
I think it's public service message trying to be funny.
Right.
Trying to be relatable and cool and TikTok.
This is Jimmy Fallon featuring Ariana Grande and Megan Thee Stallion. They're doing this thing that is supposed to be, I guess, some kind of public service message about Christmas and wearing masks and getting your booster. Let's just watch it.
Dancing?
No, it's a person covered in masks.
Oh my God, I thought it was the Grinch. That's so scary.
No, yeah, see, look.
Wait, I can't see it. Hold on, let me make this full. Oh, that's really scary.
That's like hashtag resistance porn right there.
That's really scary.
Right?
Whoa, I thought it was a Grinch dancing. Kind of looks like a Grinch, but it's just a person covered in masks. Well, it's kind of a catchy song, I'm not gonna lie. I'm sure a lot of people are gonna lose respect for me.
I just feel it's just kind of cringe all the way through, though.
It's kind of cringe, yeah. Well, what's the message really? The message is what? Get your booster. We'll be in line for a booster. You're not selling it well. No one wants to be in line for it. You just want to get it. In fact, this is like anti-vax, anti-mask. This is anti-vax propaganda. Unintentionally.
Unintentionally?
We'll be in line for a booster? Why are you emphasizing the line part?
I guess so. It's the creature covered in masks.
That's a scary thing too.
That's a scary thing. Like, I don't want that fucking thing dancing in my house.
I know, seriously.
You know what I mean?
I think they did this song. I think the song is catchy, but I think you throw in the masked creature and then we'll be in line for a booster, and you're just
and the bad jokes about getting Wi-Fi, as Wilson points out. Yeah.
I mean, not to say, I feel like kind of boomerish, but I kind of thought that was a cute little stupid joke. I'm really gonna lose. I hope people don't unsubscribe to the show because of that. But I'm just being vulnerable and real.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. That just is too cringe for me.
Yeah.
That the dancing mask creature and the mask ornaments, and then the weird switching of the masks on Ariana Grande and Jimmy Fallon.
Yeah, that's weird. So Jimmy Fallon's wearing a mask that has her face on it, the bottom of her face on it, and she's wearing a mask that has the bottom of his face on it.
Like, what's that supposed to mean?
Very weird, all of it.
And is the mask creature a fourth person, by the way?
Oh, I was wondering who's doing it. I think they just paid someone to do it. What do you think? I mean, anyone could have done it. The dance moves aren't that good, and they're all decent dancers. So
no, but nobody that famous,
right, is gonna do that.
Is gonna do that without their face showing.
Maybe at the last minute they were like, "This is so scary and weird. I was gonna show my face, but let's just cover me up."
I can't have masks and boosters. I mean, that's like turning, the Whams. I think it would have been funny if they had done Masked Christmas instead of Last Christmas. You know what I mean? Like as a spoof.
Yeah.
Although I guess I don't know. You're right. It's it's a catchy song, but something about it freaks me out. Not insignificant amount. So
they could have done "I'll Be Masked for Christmas."
Are we ever gonna not have to wear masks and all that shit?
I don't know.
I think that tweeter is right about unplugging humanity and plugging it back in again. All right. Well, that was our uplifting for food groups, and we're gonna now turn to our mystery guest. So
yes. Yeah, very excited to have joining us Christian Parenti, the author of several books, including Tropic of Capricorn. Wait, no.
Wasn't that Henry Miller?
Yes. Hold on.
Christian Parenti, author of many books, including The Adventures of Huckleberry Finn, Moby Dick, Anna Karenina,
the Bible,
The Inferno.
Yeah, sorry. The autobiography of Malcolm X.
Roots.
Roots, yeah. The Diary of Anne Frank.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So
another great Parenti work. Well, we can ask him about all those books.
Yeah,
I mean, look, it's gonna be hard to squeeze in all those. There's a lot of stuff to ask about there.
I know.
We forgot Meditations by that was when he was writing
Christian Parenti.
Right. Well, he was writing under the name Marcus Aurelius at the time.
Right.
But But that was another great book, very influential. Very
influential
back then.
All really great works. Oh, we forgot Romeo and Juliet.
Romeo and Juliet. Well, that was in his dramatic phase.
Right. We're not focusing on his drama, his plays. Right.
I was always more a fan of the comedies and the tragedies.
Yeah. Are you there, God? It's me, Christian.
Waiting for Parenti.
Waiting for Parenti, yeah.
Yeah. All right.
So Christian Parenti, for real, the former contributing editor at The Nation, the author of Lockdown America, The Soft Cage, and The Freedom, also The Tropic of Chaos, Climate Change, and the New Geography of Violence. And he contributes frequently to Jacobin and nonsite.org. NonSite is, of course, friend of the show's Adolph Reed's site. It's a peer-reviewed online journal. And we're going to be talking to him about a new essay that he has at that site.
All right, sounds good. We will. Let's go to the videotape.
Matt, are you stuck on what to give your friends and family this year?
I am, totally.
Well, here's my idea. Wish them a merry softness and happy new rear. And with new comfy underwear, loungewear, and pajamas from Tommy John. And how are we going to do Happy Hanukkah and Happy Kwanzaa in that pun language? We'll have to come back to you for that one.
Yeah. Tommy John loungewear's luxuriously soft tri-blend and micromodal fabrics mean four-way stretch and no lint balls or fuzz, Katie.
With over 17 million pairs sold, Matt, giving the gift of Tommy John underwear and loungewear has become a holiday tradition for families all across the country. 97% of women and men love getting a gift from Tommy John.
Well, I know. Look, there is one talking point I want to get into.
Okay. Oh, I know it's going to be. Yeah.
Tommy John has a no wedgie guarantee.
Yeah. How many other companies can you say that for?
So that's interesting. Like, I'd like to find out. I'd like to test that. Does that mean like they guarantee
that it can't be done? Like,
no, yeah, that's what I mean. Like,
right? That's yeah.
Organically, are they promising you won't ever end up with a wedgie? But what happens if a bunch of dudes from the neighborhood decide?
Yeah, you should photograph that or videograph that and then ask for your money back.
Yeah.
Just give yourself a wedgie and say, there's a wedgie right there.
Right. I
think what they mean, but I still think we can nail them on this legally. But I think what they mean is it won't ride up and give you a wedgie. The underwear won't spontaneously wedgie you.
But if jerks decide to give you one.
Yeah. Then there's no Tommy.
I mean, that would be an amazing product if it was.
That would be.
Like every nerd in the country would have to buy that. Have you ever been party to a wedgieing?
No. Have you?
I have. I've been on both ends.
Oh wow.
Yeah. So I have the shame of having wedgied somebody, but I've also been wedgied.
Well, it's a cycle of abuse. You probably wedgied after being wedgied.
I can't remember. I mean, I was the abused nerd before I was the mean person.
Exactly, of course.
In high school.
Yeah.
Middle school is basically when you get your most wedgies, right?
I guess, yeah. Again, I was spared. So
it's more of a dude thing, right?
It is more of a dude thing, yeah.
I've seen somebody have their underwear actually pulled out of their pants, like ripped.
No.
Mm-hmm.
Who did that?
I didn't have anything to do with it. I didn't stop it though, so that's on my conscience.
You were like, it was like a Kitty Genovese case of wedging.
Yeah, exactly.
You got to find that victim, make amends. Apologize.
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah, if I ever join AA, that'll be one of the first things I have to do, right?
Yeah. Or wedgie or WA or
Wedgers Anonymous.
Or wedgie by WBA, Wedgie Bystanders Anonymous.
Wedgie Bystanders Anonymous. Yeah. Yeah, get $20 off site-wide right now at TommyJohn.com/useful. That's TommyJohn.com/useful for $20 off, Katie. Order by December 21st to get it in time for Christmas. TommyJohn.com/useful. See site for details.
So excited to be talking to Christian Parenti. So excited to have you on the show to talk about, among other things, your recent article, The First Privilege Walk, which is at NonSite.org, which is, of course, the site founded by friend of show, Adolph Reed. And the subtitle of this piece is How Herbert Marcuse's Widow Used a Scientology-Linked Cult's Methodology to Gamify Identity Politics and thus helped steer the U.S. left down the dead-end path of identitarian psychobabble.
That's an impressive subtitle, I have to say. Like that, like by itself.
We'd have you on just for that.
Yeah, like and that should get like a nomination for something.
It's like a 19th century style subtitle.
It's very good.
Subtitles would have like semicolons in them and go on.
Right. Exactly.
So what made you write this piece in the first place? Like, how did you even stumble upon this story?
Well, I was, as I say in the story, when I was
one of the first.
I hitchhiked out to California from Vermont, got a job moving furniture, and I had dropped out of college already. And there was this weird little college called the New College of California, which later folded, and that's a whole interesting story in of itself. But so I enrolled in the New College of California, and it was a left-leaning, relatively inexpensive, progressive little place. And there, in my first semester in a class taught by an anthropology professor who had actually had lived with Foucault briefly, or had stayed in Foucault's little next door apartment. We did this exercise, and it was I was sort of didn't quite know what to make of it, but it felt like it was avoiding, real radicalism somehow, but I couldn't quite at that point figure out what was wrong with it.
And for those who don't know, what exercise are we talking about?
Right. Yeah. So the privilege walk, which was founded.
Shuffle?
It was called at first the power shuffle, and sometimes it still is called the power shuffle. And this is an exercise beloved by social justice trainers, where a group of people stand on a line and then take a step forward or a step backward in response to a series of questions, such as if you've ever been made fun of because of your ethnicity or sexual identity, take one step backward. If you're a white man, take one step forward. And any kinds of questions can be asked. And in the end, people are arrayed along a spectrum of privilege, and discussion ensues.
I did that, by the way.
Or it doesn't ensue sometimes. Sometimes it's just sort of now look at this and take it all in. As if living in this society, you weren't every day bombarded by forms of inequality, sort of supposed to, oh, wow. So that's what the privilege walk is. And the reason I wrote the article was because I did this in 1989. And then over the years, people would tell me, oh, I just did this exercise in, law school. I got into law school and we did this thing or this, blah, 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 different places. And I'd always be like, yeah, I did that. I did one of those. And then
I did
it occurred
at Union Summer, by the way. I did it when I was doing Union Summer, which is an internship that the AFL-CIO used to offer.
I won't ask you how well or poorly you did, but
I can't even remember. I just remember someone stepping. The one thing I remember was they said, have you ever been made fun of for your weight? And this girl who was very thin stepped forward, and I was shocked, or stepped backwards. That's the only thing that stands out for me.
Yeah. They should have referees in this, because like that's like I don't know, but so yeah.
What would the referees' uniforms look like?
That's
rainbows.
Yeah.
Something cultish, like a black tracksuit and Adidas, maybe.
Right. Yeah. Shed your container. Mm-hmm.
And actually, it was weird. I actually started. I read the Helen Pluckrose book, Cynical Theories, and I was like thinking about reviewing it, and I started writing about this and looking into it, researching, trying to figure out where it actually came from, because I had a hunch that these people I knew were probably at the beginning, and sure enough, they were. So this professor of mine had learned it from one of the people who had invented it, who was named, she has since passed away. Her name was Erica Sherover Marcuse, and she was a student of Herbert Marcuse's, and then later married him and was his widow. And so,
and can you just share, because not everyone is familiar with Marcuse, can you just give a short biography of him in a sentence?
It's going to be tough.
Yeah. I mean, a member of the Frankfurt School, kind of, neo-Marxist German critical theory that was in the Frankfurt School, named for, Frankfurt, Germany, where the Institute for Social Research that they were all part of was housed there, and they were all scattered to the wind by the rise of Nazism. And the Frankfurt School the thinkers of the Frankfurt School were concerned with the question of subjectivity and how capitalist society, engineered consent. And they were most famously about mixing Freud and Marx to sort of move beyond the traditions of sort of classical Marxism that were at that point heavily rooted in, political economy. And they were in many ways one of the opening acts of a kind of the cultural turn, as it later becomes known. I mean, now there's just, a whole cottage industry in the kinds of cultural analysis that the Frankfurt School pioneered. And Marcuse was in many ways the kind of most left, because some of the Frankfurt School members, when the 60s come along, kind of like Adorno, there's Adorno, Horkheimer, Marcuse, those are the most famous. Erich Fromm is part of it. There's a bunch of other lesser known scholars who are part of it. And like Adorno sort of turns against the New Left. He sees the New Left radicalism as kind of dangerous and unhinged. And Marcuse in America becomes like the kind of a philosophical wellspring for New Left politics. So he's helping infuse the milieu with ideas, and he's also, responding to the whole moment and responding to the milieu. It's not like people are just like reading Marcuse and then doing things. It's like people are in and out of movements. There's a cultural revolution, there's riots, there's these radical movements. The civil rights movement has been victorious, and there's the rise of the Black Power movement, the Panthers, various other ethnic nationalist movements. The student left is becoming increasingly, or elements of it are becoming increasingly radical. So Marcuse is influenced by all that and influences it. And very, very importantly, he's quite cynical about the role of working classes in core capitalist economies. He sees them as having been too bought off, essentially, that even though they remain like a real class in that they don't own the means of production and they just sell their labor, that intellectually they're hopeless, that they're never going to be a class in themselves, a class for themselves. They're not going to develop class consciousness because they have had too many victories. And, that wasn't entirely untrue. There was, large parts of the industrial working classes in the West were pretty conservative and were doing quite well. But the great irony is that was largely due to the fact that they had been so radical and so united and so disciplined, and they had won these gains. And then Marcuse dies in 76. And, in the last couple of years of his life, there's already the opening acts of what we now call neoliberalism, right? This shift away from the intellectual consensus around policy that comes out of the 1930s, which is that, okay, capitalism has to be managed. There's going to be booms and busts, and there's, regardless of any moral concern, there have to be programs to redistribute money to the poor so that, the business cycle is, flattened, that, recessions aren't as bad. And there's a turn away from all that begins in the 70s. And, Pinochet famously in Chile is part of it, but the austerity in New York City during the fiscal crisis is one of the opening acts domestically. So even in Marcuse's last years, like an assault, a new and really vicious assault upon the gains of the working class are beginning. But so if you want to be charitable to Marcuse's cynicism about the working classes in core economies, you could say, well, he was commenting at really like the peak of living standards for that class, and he missed the worst of what was to come in the 80s, where there's just wholesale deindustrialization, breaking of unions, and the total transformation of regions like the Midwest, just like devastation as a result of policy that allows business to automate more radically and outsource and just close up shop and go away.
He had become famous already for, that book, One Dimensional Man, which essentially, I think you characterize it as describing the working classes as a little bit lazy, or they'd been essentially anesthetized by the consumer gains of, I guess it was then 1950s America, right then when he was writing that book, or early 60s maybe.
Yeah, I forget when One Dimensional Man came out, but
yeah. The idea was that the working class was not going to be sufficient by itself to achieve revolution, and so there needed to be a new coalition.
Yeah, and new revolutionary subjects.
Right.
And so that's like, that kind of opens the door for for
1964,
identities,
by the way.
And there an assumption begins, which is that somehow all of these identitarian struggles, which were important and were based in real grievances, that they would somehow add up to a force that could and would challenge the domination of capital, i.e. the domination of big business in the 1%. And in the ensuing decades, I think we see that's not true. It does not add up to that, and in fact, it functions as a kind of ersatz left, as a kind of decoy left. Not that there's like some great conspiracy, but that there's a realization among policy elites in the 60s that opposition is never going to go away, right? That under capitalism, under really any class society, there's never going to be just total consent and social peace. There's always going to be resistance. And so the choice then is like, if as for economic elites, it's like, well, what kind of opposition would you prefer to have? People organized as workers who want higher wages, who want the decommodification of things like education and healthcare, who basically want to take your money and redistribute the wealth that society produces? Or would you prefer an opposition that's much more fragmented and is about ending discrimination, changing the way language works, that's ultimately making a set of cultural demands? Not that these cultural demands never have any material impact, they do, but they don't add up to give us the money,
Right. It's a little bit more, as you described, a little bit more about etiquette and manners in some respects than, money and power.
Yeah. Part of the fallacy in all this is also that the, for example, like racial disparities, that these are the result only of racist attitudes. And that's, that doesn't really always pan out. James Foreman Jr.'s excellent book, Locking Up Our Own, is good for this. And the book opens, he's a defense attorney, and his client has been sentenced to, and he looks around and the courtroom and everyone is Black. And the book then goes on to explain how, a lot of African-American prisoners in America are sent to prison from cities that aren't controlled by white elites, but are controlled by Black elites. And that it would be wrong to say these prosecutors and judges and Black police captains are racist. They're not racist. They've in fact fought against white racism to get where they are. But that doesn't prevent them from locking up and making careers upon locking up poor Black people. And so the end result is racial disparity. And the incorrect assumption that a lot of people make is that that's always rooted in the mentality of people. And if you can change people's feelings and attitudes, then these policies are going to change. And, Foreman's, what he shows is that like, you can change the entire personnel and you get the same outcomes. So there's something deeper and more structural than just the attitudes of people in these courtrooms.
And Foreman is Black, right?
Yes.
That's why
he's the son of civil rights leader James Foreman Sr.
So tell us a little bit more about Ricky Sherover Marcuse and how this, because this is an amazing journey described in this article of how she came to have all these ideas, who else influenced her along the way. I mean, I think if it were more widely known, there'd be a lot of questions about some of these ideas. But could you talk a little bit about that?
So it begins, her father is an important character. There's a way in which this is a classic, generational conflict. Her father's name was Miles Sherover, and he was born in Poland. He comes to America. He's orphaned, not orphaned, but his father dies by the age of 11. He's selling insurance door to door. He graduates from City College, and he's some sort of a lefty. Definitely in like the CP milieu, whether or not he was a member of the Communist Party, I don't know. He goes to the Soviet Union. He travels around. He does international kind of left journalism, writes some pieces for the New Republic. I think he writes a piece or two for The Nation. And then he is an efficiency engineer in the Soviet Union. So really like a real character. He then comes back to America and he becomes the first person to underwrite Soviet bonds. And very crucially, he becomes the Spanish Republic's purchasing agent. It's kind of like their guy in Washington on the economic front during the Spanish Civil War, when there's a fascist coup attempt within the army, and then there's the Civil War, and Nazi Germany and fascist Italy go to the support of Franco and his rebel forces, and the world embargoes the Spanish Republic except for the Soviet Union and Mexico. And so Miles Sherover is in the US, and isolationists in the US Congress have passed laws preventing any aid from going to the Spanish Republic. And Miles Sherover Marcuse, with the knowledge of and approval of Franklin Roosevelt, and working closely with his brother-in-law, Gracie Hall Roosevelt, who has the same last name, even though he's his brother-in-law, because of course, Eleanor Roosevelt's maiden name was Roosevelt, because they were cousins from the two different birthdays.
Yeah, it took me a while to figure that out. And then I remember they were
ruling
cousins.
Class. They're weird. But to his credit, FDR is like approving these secret deals. Miles Sherover sends 30 shiploads of, weapons and medicine and supplies to the Spanish Republic. At least one historian, I quote, says that his company, Hanover Trading, was central to keeping the Spanish Republic alive for 2 years. And then he's finally working on getting over 100 bombing aircraft shipped to France, but it's for Spain. And right-wingers in the aircraft industry get wise to this and like, wait a minute, what is this? And so the whole thing blows up. And but like Miles Sherover went to the White House and met with FDR on this stuff. And he also facilitated the transfer of German and Italian aircraft technology to the US, which was important in US preparation for the war, to study that technology. So then after the war, Miles Sherover goes to Mexico. He makes documentaries in Mexico, and he somewhere along the way, he acquires the rights to several Charlie Chaplin films. He sells the rights to these films, to the great dictator in particular, but he owns several others as well, to the Czech government for like 10 times the going rate for such a deal. He parlays that money into creating the largest private steel corporation in Venezuela. And then by the early 50s is splitting his time between Jerusalem and Caracas. And he endows the Jerusalem theater. And so he's like,
he leaves his wife and kids, right?
That's right. And along the way, when he goes to Venezuela, he abandons his wife and his two kids, the eldest daughter being Ricky Sharover.
Erica's nickname is Ricky.
Right. That was her nickname. Her real name was, her full name's Erica Sharover, and then Erica Sharover Marcuse. Ricky then, is educated in New York City. She goes to Oberlin College. And when she graduates, she goes to Israel and she spends time on a kibbutz, and her father tries to come and see her. So there's clearly like this conflict between them. They eventually reconcile, from what I was told by family members. And so she is part of the New Left. And this is I think she's in Israel in like 60 and 61. And she then comes back to New York. She enrolls at Brandeis, where Marcuse is teaching at the time. She becomes a teaching assistant of his. And then when he goes to UC San Diego, she goes with him. And Marcuse's second wife, Inga Neumann, I believe she passes away. And so Marcuse is widowed. And then a year or so after he's widowed, he and Ricky get together and then are married. And she writes a dissertation. I mean, Marcuse has passed away. He dies in 76. And Erica Sharover Marcuse writes a dissertation, does a dissertation under the guidance of Habermas, is how she finishes it. Habermas, who's still alive, was a Frankfurt School luminary. And she publishes that book, and it's called Emancipation and Consciousness. And it's a critique of Marx for not having a theory of revolutionary consciousness. And it's basically says that Marx, Marx
too materialist.
Marx is too materialist. And so, it's very much in this kind of, the vein of what Herbert Marcuse was concerned with, and in the vein of what the New Left across the West was concerned with, which was, transforming consciousness. How do you build revolutionary consciousness in the advanced capitalist core? And how do you throw off the soft and comfy shackles of consumerism and entertainment culture that, have been anesthetizing people?
And to hear the rest of the interview, please go to usefulidiots.substack.com.
Everyone likes a great deal, like savings, markdowns, and lunch specials. But when it comes to car insurance, we know the right place. State Farm offers surprisingly great rates for your ride. Your friends don't have to have a connection or call in a favor. State Farm offers options like insuring your ride and your home, getting you great rates on both. Now that's a deal. Like a good neighbor, State Farm is there. Call or go to statefarm.com for a quote today.
That was great, huh?
It was. That's an article after my own heart, honestly.
Yeah, I know.
I mean,
I have him on for a while, and then that was like made for you in a lab, that article.
But see, this is this is what irritates me about a lot of my own experience in the last 2 or 3 years. I don't particularly classify myself as a person of the left, although I clearly grew up, on that side of the spectrum, like an ACLU,
right?
Liberal, like all that stuff. But to me, my immediate reaction to a lot of sort of new left movements is that this was not leftism, that this was a corruption of something, that it's on some level, some kind of play. I couldn't figure it out right away, but it seemed like, it's easy to see when you follow the Bernie Sanders campaign,
right,
that what he's asking for is very simple, decipherable, and
left,
clearly sincere, and clearly has a left tradition. Although I would say it's a much watered down version of the left, right? Which isn't necessarily a bad thing, but you can easily understand where he's coming from.
Yeah.
This other thing is not so simple to understand. And, I think the degree to which just watching it even clash with the Sanders movement and interact with it in the last few years, and to see almost that it was hostile to the Sanders movement when it should have, if it was really left, it should have been deeply enthusiastic about it.
Right. Well, because they're not, because they're a bunch of corporate sellouts. So
anyway, I think this article is really interesting because it explains a lot, this idea of sort of psychologizing politics and diverting attention from the material side of things. We've talked about that with people like Adolph Reed before.
Yeah,
that history makes a ton of sense.
Yeah,
the more you know,
and it just also it's so counterproductive. And whether or not you care about disparity or you care more about actual injustice and exploitation, you know, given how racism works and how our economy works, obviously when you address the exploitation and you increase people's wages, you're going to be disproportionately helping people of color.
Right.
I'm just making the argument for people who have that view. No one gets thrown under the bus by mass class-based politics.
Not necessarily. No, I mean, the people who get thrown under the bus in mass class-based politics are the relatively
1%.
few. Very few people who, you know, have way too much money, right? Like
and they don't even get thrown off the bus. They get put from like a first class seat. No, what's like the top of the first class? They get removed like once every 5 flights from a private jet or something.
Yeah.
They're fine.
Exactly. If it's the Sanders version, yeah. I mean, if you're talking about the Bolshevik version, it's a little bit more brutal. Yeah.
I think we need to threaten them with that. If only they thought that the alternatives were that or Sanders.
But for sure, and this is something that came out for me with the Loudon thing, is just when you let this loose on everybody, the immediate reaction is complete mayhem. Everybody hates everybody else, and everybody blames everybody else. Like it becomes impossible to even imagine organizing anything, you know, in an environment like that.
And we didn't even have time to get into this. We can talk about it another time. But one of the women who participated in this stuff and is now kind of like a right winger, uses the word globalist, with kind of like turned, I think, repulsed by some of those practices, and still rails against, like, still sees the 1% as the enemy, but now from the right, not from the left, because she was so turned off by this stuff.
That's interesting. Interesting. Yeah. Anyway, great article. Highly recommend everybody read it, and rate, review,
too.
And
rate, review, subscribe,
and we will see you again soon.
Yep. Bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Hello, thank you so much for listening to and watching Useful Idiots. For full episodes and extended interviews, please subscribe at usefulidiots.substack.com. You can subscribe on YouTube at youtube.com/usefulidiots for clips, live streams, and full episodes. Also, subscribe to us wherever you find your podcast. Follow us on Twitter at UsefulIdiotPod and use the hashtag UsefulIdiotsPod. Join us Mondays at 10 a.m. for the Useful Idiots Monday Morning Show, where we discuss the Sunday morning news shows so you don't have to watch them.